She's Katie Montgomery. He's Justin Joseph. These best friends are serving subpoenas to bad advice weekly with Wrong Way Forward. Now, here's Katy and Justin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Montgomery, and I'm here with my best friend, Justin Joseph. And this is an episode of Wrong Way Forward, where we roast advice and tell you whether or not what you're doing is right or wrong.
And give you ideas for things you could be doing that may be right and may be wrong. And that's today's topic.
Correct. So today we're going to talk about, and it's what Nancy Reagan told us as youth not to do, drugs. So we're going to talk about drugs. And I want to start with, I found this guy. I want to meet him. I thought he was amazing. He's a New York Times reporter. He wrote an article for the New York Times, but he was also featured and interviewed on the Daily. And his name is Robert Draper. And what he did is he went and took a drug called Ibogaine, and he named it kind of as a game-changing drug. The idea is that this drug is used to help with PTSD, used to help with addiction, cognitive decline. They've even seen it used in ALS, Parkinson, and Alzheimer's. But it is from a West African shrub in Gabon. And basically what happened was in the 1970s, there was a man, he was a heroin addict, and he just could not. There we go. It felt like an airplane was flying.
Well, I was like, what? I was like, is that on my side?
I don't
know. But what was that? Was that over there at the beach?
I mean, I don't think it was here, but at first I thought, did I take some of that Ibogaine? Because anyway, it was a 1970s heroin addict. He had just gotten to the very end. He's like, there's nothing else works. And he used this and it cured him. And so the idea is that it affects the neuroplasticity in your brain and it opens up part of your brain. So you can move past the trauma. So you can move past the potential addiction. And it was a fantastic article, which got Justin and I started talking about what do we think is it the wrong way forward to participate in these kind of drugs. And so these are things like ayahuasca, MDMA, some people might even say ketamine is in that category, or Ibogaine, which are considered illegal, but you can go to certain places, i.e. outside of the United States, and try these things. And I'm very curious. So Justin, what do you think?
Well, I found this fascinating. We're going to listen to some of his account of it. But you know, between this and ayahuasca, I mean, they just fascinate me. So basically, these are long hallucination drugs, is my understanding of them. People who have done them swear by them. I read an article once on someone on ayahuasca who said that he saw the devil and saw Christ, which I thought was really interesting. And he said his entire trip, for lack of a better word, was trying to understand the interplay between the two of them, but he actually saw those two, which I thought was fascinating. That was a really good article. This one was interesting to me because this guy had trauma involving his family, right, Katie?
Yes, his brother. He had a brother who was incredibly violent, was abusive, and really hijacked the family. And it had some kind of lingering, effects on him and his confidence and how he held himself in the world.
So he wanted to try this drug, and so he found a clinic in Mexico that provides it. And I think the guy who put the clinic on is some tech something, but has a lot of money and went down and opened a clinic. Mm-hmm. So he flies down to Mexico. I think he said there's 11 people that had signed up for this. And I went on their site, and you can go on the site and find it. I think it's an $8,000 cost to join this clinic. And so he goes down, they were picked up. I think the night before they had a dinner or something to that effect. And later, I think that the event, for lack of a better word, starts at 11 o'clock. He talks about how he went into a room and there were mattresses on the floor for all 11 of them. Mm-hmm. He talked about the other people that were with him were people that had been dealing with PTSD from war injuries, that kind of thing. But here's how he describes the drug. We're going to hear him a few different takes talk about how his experience, but this is what he described the drug as.
Again, Perry, like Cinema, emphasized to me that this was nobody's idea of a party drug. It was a very, very powerful substance.
And I want to get into the power of that substance. Tell me about Ibogaine. What is it and how does it work?
Sure. It's a psychedelic, a drug that is derived from a natural source, actually from the bark of a West African shrub known as Tabernanthe iboga, found principally in the country of Gabon and used in initiation ceremonies in that and other African countries. But it had been circulating in Europe and the United States, really going back to the 1940s, but particularly so roughly around 1970 when a heroin addict named Howard Lotsoff, kind of chasing the next high, had an opportunity to try.
And that's what you were talking about, Katie. But anyway, these tribes, I guess, have been doing it for 1,000 years. These are all natural drugs, meaning that, a lot of the drugs out on the open market are cut with various things that make them dangerous. This is something that is completely natural, is my understanding. Is that your...
Yeah. Well, and I think what's interesting is he mentioned two names at the beginning, Sinema and Perry. That refers to Senator Sinema from Arizona and Rick Perry, the former governor of Texas. And both of these people have been advocates for this drug because they have heard through basically veterans. So people who have, gone through war and are dealing with, debilitating PTSD, who have gone, and I think both of them have participated in this. So this is how he kind of knew of it and that it was vetted. But I do think it's interesting that he said it's, I think people hear the word drug and, and they think hallucinations and they think, oh, you're on mushrooms or acid, you're at a Grateful Dead concert, you're at a Fish concert, you're having a good time. And they're like, it's no walk in the park. Like it is, it doesn't just affect your brain and the visuals, it actually affects your body. And it's the same thing with ayahuasca. I mean, you can puke, you can have stomach pains, you can have terrible diarrhea. And so it's again, not a walk in the park. So I think people need to kind of understand that this is not a party drug.
And here's how he describes the experience itself.
So I sat there and I started, rattling the maraca along to the music. And I felt a little bit goofy doing this. And so after maybe 45 seconds or so, I decided that I would stop. I also noticed I was beginning to get lightheaded. We were all equipped with these very heavy-duty eye masks. So I lay back and slid on my eye mask. And the moment I did so, the hallucinations began in earnest.
This is your first inkling, it sounds like, that,
Yeah.
Okay, this trip is really underway.
Yes, and as I even mention that, I'm actually getting goosebumps because it remains so present to me, the sensation of realizing this is not at all what my imagination or what any of the available information had told me it would be.
What
And well,
was it? I'm dying to know.
Here's an example of what he talked
Yeah,
about.
well, the first worm was like a film strip, like 6 images, and they were all of what appeared to be tribal chiefs. And then those images dissolved, and then they were replaced by new images. And I don't remember all of them, but I remember very distinctly that some of them were quite troubling. There was a battlefield, and there were bodies strewn across a battlefield. There was another one of what looked to be a lot of starving children. And all of these were static images. But then the next image that came up was the only one that was not static, which was a pile of rocks and then these long black snakes slithering out of the rocks.
Okay, and I would have had a heart attack right there. Anyway, so that gives you an idea. It's a hallucination. He says he doesn't remember. I think he said he remembers about a third. This took place over 12 hours, right? He has these hallucinations over 12 hours. He remembers about a third of it. And I'm still trying to understand why it's cathartic and why all these people come out changed. He'll talk about that in our last clip in a minute, but basically it lets you see your life as you were meant to be, is my understanding. Is that what yours?
Yeah, I think so. I have a really good friend, one of my best friends from law school. His wife is basically a ayahuasca practitioner. Like she's the one who kind of like runs these and manages these. So I think he's done it 3 or 4 times. And what's interesting is I think he has a deeper level and a more intimate kind of understanding of himself each time he does. It's almost like exponentially kind of increases. But he comes out, the words that I would use is like at peace at balance, a contentment, a kind of understanding, like maybe like a itch that's been scratched,
Oh, we should have him on the show.
yeah, or even have her because she kind of,
Oh yeah, let's have her. That's a good show.
those kind of ceremonies. But so, I think what's interesting and I'm really torn. I am so curious and I really want to be like, what would I see? What would I feel like afterwards?
Would you see your mother or your father with that?
Yeah, or what are the possibilities? Then there's part of me that it's like, I don't want to puke and duke in front of anyone. Like, I'm terrified I'm going to shit my pants in the middle of this, much less, we're bedwetters. I'm sure going to piss my pants. And so I'm mortified of that. But then I'm also scared about what I might see. And I don't know if you remember this, Justin. It's when I was student body president, you were vice president, there was some kind of event and they brought in a hypnotist.
Oh, yeah.
And they put me on stage and I just fought it because I was so scared that in front of the entire student body, I was going to say something like, I'm a virgin. And I was so terrified. So I'm also terrified about what I'm going to see. Like, could I be the 10% that doesn't have an awakening, but instead,
awful.
Because here's the thing. I think this is still somewhat risky behavior, correct? It's not completely regulated. You're having to go to a foreign country, to do Ibogaine. So I'm really torn on what's the right way forward for me or what's the wrong way forward for me when it comes to using a potent, really big time psychedelic.
We'll take that up on the other side, whether to do or not to do Ibogaine. We'll be right back.
You've been listening to Wrong Way Forward, where bad advice goes to die and then gets resurrected just so we can roast it again.
If you're enjoying the chaos, hit like and subscribe and come back every Thursday for new episodes.
Have a new topic or some disastrously bad advice you want to dissect? Email wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Include your contact info.
Now back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katy and Justin podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward, where we're talking about something that's fascinated me for some time. We've heard about ayahuasca. Aaron Rodgers, the football player, has done it and swears by it. Everyone that I know of has done it and sworn by it, except this one that I talked about at the beginning who saw the devil and it scared the hell out of him. We're talking about Ibogaine, which is the new version of this week. And again, it's like a 12-hour trip. You go down to Mexico. This guy says apparently they hook you up to heart monitors, which is interesting to me. I'm like, that scares me.
I think if you have like an arrhythmia or something, like you have to be kind of medically cleared for something. I also want to say Aaron Rodgers doing this is by no means a great endorsement. This guy's anti-vaccine. So let's that puts it in the no column for me. So we need to find some more people like Robert Draper, who I think are well-educated and focused.
Right. And on that note, Robert Draper in our next clip talks about the experience we had talked about, that he had a lot of trauma, something involved his brother, and at the end of his hallucination, the brother comes up, and we'll let him describe what that was like.
What were your feelings when you saw, for example, the images of your family or of you in this kind of confident state?
I remember I had the capacity to say, that's an unmarred version of me. That's a me I recognize and yet that I haven't seen before.
I think that really sums it up, that what the positive outcome for him is that you see an unmarred version of yourself, the version of yourself that you were meant to be before trauma and life experience and all of that. And so that's interesting to me.
Oh, I think it's super interesting. And I'm wondering, it's interesting when he talks about his journey. He had been on a wait list and then he got, I guess, a call and he ended up like going over Thanksgiving. And so, part of me is like, I can tell you this much. I would never be able to do it completely on my own. I would not go down with a group of strangers. Like I would
go
have
with
to
your
go
sister,
with you or my sister, or like,
not me.
You would not be much support. As soon as I shat my pants, you would tell everyone.
Well, that's the other thing the guy says. He's like, you're in the middle of hallucination, and he's like, the only time you really come out of it is because you can hear other people vomiting, and in your case, shitting yourself,
Yes.
and then you just drift right back into your hallucination.
I mean, I'd probably be a double barrel shotgun. I would probably be pooping and puking. I mean, it would probably be horrific. But I would never have the nerve to go by myself. Like, I would have to have someone that I knew there. First of all, to experience it with me, because I would have to debrief about it big
For
time.
months.
Yeah, and I would need to have someone who would have some frame of reference, because if I was talking to somebody, I would. So
I just wouldn't do it. I couldn't. I'm too much of a scaredy cat.
and I think it's the control for you.
Yeah. Oh God. I'm afraid what it would show. Yeah.
Well, I mean, me too. So I mean, I think I could see myself doing ayahuasca before this Ibogaine, because
And would you do it if you had your sister and you went? Would you do it?
Here's the thing. I think that I would lean towards yes. Like, I think right now I would probably be like a 7.5. And I think maybe it's because I have this good friend from law school who's done it multiple times, and I trust him, and I find him to be smart and complicated and interesting. And, and when he kind of debriefs on it. But I mean, I'm not a solid 10. I mean, there's still kind of,
It's like when I
fear
go to a theme park, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll ride that roller coaster, and then I get in line, and then I say closer. I'm like, I'm not effing doing this. There's just no way.
See, and I've jumped out of an airplane. I was the kid who jumped off the high dive. I'm like, once I kind of say I'm going to do it, I'm like, I don't want to back out. But I mean, this would be, a commitment. I think also, here's the thing, right? I think both of us are the same way, like we just booked, a trip, and I'm like, I want to stay. Oh my gosh, there's the airplane again. But I want to stay at a particular hotel, and I want to, have cocktails here. I've got limited vacation time. Do I want to go somewhere and crap myself, or do I want to have a $24 martini at a fancy bar
on the beach?
On the beach. I mean, life's a bunch of decisions, right?
Yeah,
So.
I'm 100% with you, and I would not. I'm officially a no on Ibogaine and ayahuasca for those reasons as well. I mean, they sound like it's some. He said it was a nice resort, I think, didn't he? It's like right over the border.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's nice. I mean, I think it's got some. It's kind of probably a little sterile, because it's got kind of a leaning towards a hospital. But here's the thing, they're now using MDMA. So I think the book that I read was called The Tell, about a girl who had completely, I mean, it's brutal, this book, but she had completely blocked out sexual abuse in high school, did not recall it, and comes back, and it starts to come. And I think she was the one. I read so many books, they all kind of blur together, but I think she did some MDMA therapy, which isn't that like Molly, or isn't that
I've done some MDMA therapy as well.
Oh, you have?
especially in my 20s.
On a Friday night?
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, I know a lot of people who are doing the ketamine therapy, right now.
Oh, you do? The only person
Not
I know
me.
who did that was
Elon Musk.
No, the dude from Friends. I read his Matthew Perry, and it didn't turn out well for
that's
him.
recreational ketamine. There's a ketamine therapy that you can get prescribed from doctors.
No.
I mean, it's under doctor supervision, but I know people who are doing that.
Again, when you use Elon Musk, that's not a good endorsement for me.
All right. When we come back on the other side, we'll wrap up talking about Ibogaine and ayahuasca and whether it's the right or wrong way forward. We'll be right back after this. Thanks for streaming Wrong Way Forward, the weekly reminder that advice is usually free for a reason. We call out bad advice wherever it hides: boardrooms, break rooms, and even book clubs.
Enjoying this dumpster fire? Like, subscribe, and check back every Thursday for new episodes. Want us to roast your favorite piece of nonsense? Email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to include your contact info. We're not psychic, just judgmental. And now, back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katy and Justin.
And we're back. And I think we've come to the conclusion that these kind of mind-altering, hallucinogenic, kind of long trip kind of drugs are the wrong way forward for Justin. Could potentially be the right way forward for me. But, this leads me to kind of, again, we love to talk about kind of celebrity bad behavior. And I have a very, very soft spot, Justin, for Britney. I always chose Britney over Christina. Britney was just such a part of our culture. I mean, like, we danced to it at your law school graduation. We played it in college. I don't know. It was just, she was from Mississippi, like she tried. And so, has recently, I think, has pled to maybe a DUI, and has gone to rehab based on kind of some urging of her two sons. I think they did an intervention. And so I think that's really the right way forward for Britney. I don't think Britney should be under a conservatorship. I think Britney should be able to make adult decisions. But, Britney has experienced quite a bit of trauma. So what I'm wondering is what would an Ibogaine...
What trauma? What do we know about that?
Well, I mean, I think, she was with Justin Timberlake and he cheated on her. She aborted a baby. I also listened to her biography. I think her father was pretty much a piece of shit. She has been under this conservatorship. She's had some unhealthy marriages. She was worked to the bone. I mean, like, lots of people were on her paycheck and she was supporting them. She didn't get to take a lot of breaks. So, Ibogaine might be good for her just to kind of move through this trauma and get on the other side of it.
I feel like she has some mental health issues that probably are not going to be addressed by rehab.
I think that's probably accurate.
Yeah.
But are you still pro Britney?
No, I'm not. I wouldn't say that. Like I said, I think she's had a leg up much more than a lot of people. And there was a day when Britney was normal. And so I don't know what happened, but something's off with her. And, this latest, just talking about celebrity bad behavior, you've got her, Tiger Woods, Justin Timberlake, these people that can afford to be driven around and they're out there doing God knows what behind the wheel. And so I think that, talk about entitlement. That's what it is to me. It's just crazy. And so, no, I'm not a fan of hers anymore. I mean, I think she does some really crazy stuff. I also think she's been a terrible mother to those kids.
Yeah. I mean, she's, and I don't know if that's 100% of her own doing. I also just wish somebody would like get her a cute outfit and like get her, maybe do a keratin treatment on her hair. She just looks so haggard and like maybe, usually if you dress for success, I'm like, if you look good, you feel good. I'm wondering if that might also help.
I totally agree. I'm tired of seeing the weird dances as well.
Oh, the dances. The
dances are terrible.
I could turn around in a circle like that. That's not that impressive.
Well, we want to know what you think. Text us at 720-251-4450. Let us know, would you do Ibogaine or ayahuasca, whatever it's called? Have you done it? Let us know your experience. Text us again at 720-251-4450. Or, of course, you can always email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. As we talked about, we'll get one of these experts on in the next couple of episodes to talk to us about what the experience is like, how it works, et cetera. We'll do that down the road. But that's this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. All right, that's a wrap on this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward. Remember, the only thing worse than taking bad advice is giving it.
If you've liked what you've heard, like, subscribe, or follow us wherever you stream podcasts. And if you've got a topic or need some advice we'll probably regret giving, email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward.